When we talk about the elves of the mortal realms, we typically think of the high elves of the Lumineth Realm Lords, the wood elves of the Sylvaneth, or just the dark elves of Morathi. One thing the Age of Sigmar has over other systems, however, is that the elves don't just stop at the land. I'm not talking about the naval elven fleets of the cities of Sigmar, but instead what lies beneath them, beneath the waves, down in the depths. For the Idoneth Deepkin, they've truly taken The Little Mermaid to heart, and have made a life for themselves underneath the sea. For many of their kind, however, it's not as simple as everything is better down where it's wetter, with constant attacks, a need for fresh souls, and their fear of Teclis keeping them looking over their shoulders. Let's talk about these interesting elves, and why they're so cool beyond, the fact that they ride giant turtles into battle. The origins of the Idoneth Deepkin lie back in the tail end of the Age of Myth. The elven gods and Morathi had tracked down and captured Slaanesh, trapping the Chaos God within a demi-plane between the realms of light and shadow. Here, in the hidden gloaming, Slaanesh lay imprisoned and full of elven souls, having gorged themselves on this particular delicacy during the end times of the world that was. Teclis, using a powerful relic called the Osharian Lantern, drew forth from Slaanesh these trapped souls. Drawn like a moth to a flame, the lantern guided out a great number of elven souls, which were then divided out amongst the gods present to shape as they saw fit. Teclis, excited to return his people to life in this new world, returned to Hysh to begin shaping his new kin. Now, anyone who's ever made pancakes before knows that the first one, try as you might, never comes out perfect. For Teclis, he named his first pancake, the first race of elves that he created, the Sci-Fi. They looked like elves, seemed like elves, but something was off to Teclis. His magical sight allowed him to peer into the character of any being, but within these Sci-Fi, there lay shadows that his gaze could not pierce. He attempted to purge some of this darkness. The light of these incantations was harsh to the Sci-Fi, and some went mad from its glare. Saddened, Teclis knew that his Sci-Fi were a failure to recreate the elves of old. The Sci-Fi saw this also, seeing in their creator his defeat. They could see what would happen next, and knew better than to stick around to see it through. As Teclis turned his back to load his metaphorical shotgun, the elves fled, running to the sea to avoid going the way of Old Yeller. As they ran, they took with them the Osharian Lantern, knowing that with it, Teclis would easily find them and enact his own brand of mercy. They cast it deep within an ocean trench within Gairan, in a place so shadowed and devoid of life, its light would never reach the surface. Then, they hid. They created sanctuaries beneath the waves, harnessing the magics of the Aether Sea to survive beneath the waters. To better secure their people's survival, they spread out across the mortal realms, living in conclaves separated by realm gates. Should one group be found, at least the others would remain safe and hidden. Teclis' plan was indeed to hunt down these runaway elves, to rid the lands of the imperfection that he had smithed. It was his brother, Tyrion, that stayed his hand, requesting that Teclis show them mercy. Although he did not seek out the Sci-Fi and destroy them, Teclis kept one eye watching the waters of the worlds, prepared should his mercy ever prove to be a mistake. Over time, the enclaves grew and established themselves in their new isolationist lifestyle. They remained in contact with their kin across the mortal realms, and soon they shunned their old name, taking up a new mantle of Idoneth, meaning extreme seclusion. Their issue was, they still carried with them that imperfection, and over time this became more and more apparent. Whilst their elven bodies were, as by design, perfect, there came an issue with their souls. Only 1 in 100 children were born with a strong and healthy soul. All others carried scars from the taint they gained from their time within Slaanesh. Despite Teclis' grand magics, these children would live short lives, dying as their soul prematurely withered and perished. It took time, but the sorcerers of the Idoneth discovered a cure of sorts. They learned to draw forth the animating life force of a living being and implant that energy into another host. In short, they learned to harvest the soul energy of others. The issue was that elven souls burn much brighter and longer than most living creatures, and with elves being in short supply, it would be hard for this to be practical. That was until they discovered that a dozen or more human souls could sustain an elf for a good portion of their typical lifespan, with dwarven and uruk souls working as well to varying degrees. You have to understand, these aren't an evil people, and they took no pride in needing to steal the lives of others in order to survive. They were a people who had been created and cast down, the first pancake tossed into the trash. They just wanted to live, and saw this method of soul harvest as a stopgap until they could find another way to fix their soul curse. With that said, the Idoneth raiding parties began to encroach onto land. They struck out, attacking coastal settlements and dragging what souls they could take back with them into the depths. They brought the Aether Sea with them, allowing their aquatic mounts to swim through the magic as if they could fly. Eels, sharks, and giant turtles flew through the sky as the soul-torn Idoneth battled beneath them to steal another day of life from the races of the mortal realms. And so these silent strikes and hidden cities were a way of life for the Idoneth for the longest time, the elves surviving through theft and secrecy. This was until recently, where the effects of the Necroquake have brought the Idoneth back into the scene of the mortal realms. Whilst they stay true to their isolationist nature for the most part, they have reached out and made contact with the forces of order, and on occasion have been known to fight alongside them. The Idoneth recognise the threat that chaos poses, and are not so prideful as to think they can battle it alone. However, due to their curse, they cannot truly step into the light of good and join in full with the Stormcast and their allies, their need for souls acting as a barrier between them and the other forces of order. Within Idoneth society, there are three social classes. The greatest in number are the Nomati, those of the Idoneth who were born with this soul sickness. Once they have had their lives extended with the energies of others' souls, they serve as subservient thralls beneath the command of the nobles. They are shorter lived than the other Idoneth, and are characterised by a lack of any eyes. It is not the service, the physical impairment, or their slower development that saddens the hearts of the Nomati, however, but it is instead the fact that other Idoneth see them as still carrying a taint of chaos within their soul, and that they are thought to have been made lesser by this curse. Those Deepkin of the noble classes, those who are born with an intact soul, choose from two paths to walk down. Some join the Akelians, the warrior class of the Enclave, whereas others may become Ishran, the ranks of sages and the users of magic. It's one of these Ishran that currently hold the title of my favourite Deepkin. Lotan, Warden of the Soul Edges, is a soul warden, one of an order whose task it is to record every stolen soul. His duty, and that of his successor should he not live to see the day, is to be ready for when the true solution for the soul curse is found. On that day, when the Idoneth are no longer required to steal souls to survive, it will be Lotan's duty to bring forth this record he has created, and to begin the long process of arranging atonement for generations of evil enacted by the hands of the Idoneth Deepkin. Not only does he have this solemn and important duty, he also has a little octopus friend to keep him company and help him out where needed. Just look at these guys. I mean, this model alone is half the reason why I started an Idoneth army. Whenever I tell people about the Idoneth Deepkin, they often ask me why they're in the good guy faction. It's true, the Idoneth aren't exactly good guys, but they fall under the forces of order because 1, that's who they fight alongside, and 2, they do stand in the fight against chaos. They aren't undead, and they're not brutes hellbent on destruction. They're warriors of order who in their own way fight the good fight against the forces of chaos. At the end of the day, in the eyes of the other factions of order, they are the lesser of two evils, a controllable factor that can be given a deadline. I imagine the conversation when we can be friends until chaos is defeated. After that, if you're still stealing souls to try and stay alive, it gets difficult. There's still so much to cover with the Deepkin, such as the different enclaves, their various mounts and warrior groups, as well as what the Aethercy really is. For now though, we'll be leaving these sea elves for the time being here, all caught up to the Age of Sigmar as we know it. If you've enjoyed chatting about the Idoneth, consider liking the video and drop a comment below of what you think we should cover next. Both really help us to continue what we're doing. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.